Hey, friends, welcome back to the Crazy as Usual podcast with Donna. And today, Lauren Klayton, who will help you to bring peace to your chaos. Um, the clutter in our lives that sometimes we control and sometimes we don't. Actually, I love this about you, Lauren, that you consider the work that you do a mental health service to the community. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Clarity for Your Chaos, your homemade business. You co-founded this. And I love that you say you're committed to providing judgment-free professional organization services. Because don't we all have some form of fear of judgment? If it's not out in the open in our house, it's certainly a closet or a drawer, or sometimes it's just the clutter in our heads. And I know that we talked about the fact that in talking with people about their clutter, you do end up talking about their mental mess and their monkeys. So
Mhm.
I'm looking the monkeys that led you to start this business and the monkeys that you help to manage in your clients. Um, and a little bit more about Lauren. As a child, she had a passion for the art of organization, and she's used it as a tool to manage her own ADHD. I think that's a beautiful thing as for parents and for adult survivors of ADHD who didn't have any guidance. My husband wasn't
Absolutely.
diagnosed till he was an adult, till we were
Hmm.
married. And I have one daughter who thinks she might actually have ADHD because her anxiety kind of points in that direction. So it's important for
Absolutely.
us to look out for those signs and symptoms and then know that there's hope. So I love that you find it energizing to help people cut through the chaos. Tell us more about how clutter creates stress and how did you come into this work yourself, Lauren?
So, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's an honor to be here. I started my business because my friends told me to do it. Honestly, I really started it just to be like, okay, fine. Four friends who didn't know each other all in one week told me on different days that I should be a professional organizer. And so I started it to humor them, but I realized that a lot of the coping mechanisms that I had been using for my own ADHD were very valuable to a lot of other people. And this was right before the pandemic. So then you bring in a whole collective trauma to the world. And, people are trying to redefine their spaces in so many different ways. And we really launched the business pretty fast. I'm really grateful for my friends for getting me to do that. And for 3 years, we've seen how every time we walk into somebody's space, sometimes we end up being the first line of defense. And I noticed that because there's a lot that comes with items and your space and
Yeah.
and how you were raised specifically. And
Yep.
so a lot of times I'll walk into a space and I'll get, oh, sorry for the dishes. And I go, but the dishes' purpose is to get dirty.
Right. If we don't use the dishes, why do we have them?
That right.
Yeah.
You're here to eat. Like your space is here to serve you. So like if you're somebody who's highly sensitive and can't walk around on the floor and it has like crunchies, okay, let's get you a Roomba, right? Like let's make sure that that's the thing. But like you could have piles of dishes as long as there's no bugs are being attracted and your health isn't in concern, right? And that's okay. But we've been conditioned
Yeah.
to believe that there's this certain standard, like I always call it the Martha Stewart standard that we're always
Uh-huh.
trying to get to. And then I say, hey, Martha Stewart's a felony. She's smoking weed with Snoop Dogg in the backyard. Like those standards are out the window. Let's remember what's actually happening in the world right now.
Oh,
And
that's
it's okay
beautiful.
if you have dishes.
So how many felonies do you compare yourself with? That's a beautiful thing. Well, honestly, I tell this story a lot when I'm talking about the monkeys because I grew up in a chaotic addiction oriented family without a good blueprint for what family looks like. I really did use Martha Stewart as a standard when I set up my own household. And my
Mhm.
husband even once said, "Who do you think you are? Leave it to Beaver? Are you June Cleaver?" And I'm like, well, no, but I don't know what family's supposed to look like. I don't know what my house is supposed to look like. So yeah, I think you get married, you have kids, you have a house, you keep it clean. And I didn't even realize that there was permission to have a different standard. So how do you help people to come back around to owning their environment and not being driven by these external factors?
I think the biggest thing is, and I'm gonna get a little clamped,
I love
is
it.
the
I love it.
honor
Let
to
it
get
come.
into their space.
Uh-huh.
And for them to start being like, oh, I this is the worst you've probably ever seen. And I'm like, do you have toes in there? Because I've found multiple toes at this point. Like, honestly, I mean, you can't throw anything at me that I'm straight laced for. Like,
Uh-huh.
okay, you want to do what here? Well, we can't do that here because of this. And sometimes it's just having somebody walk into your space and like logically lay it out that like, this isn't bad. It's really not that, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're all juggling. And this is the analogy that I use a lot. Like, most of the time when I meet people that maybe this stuff has gotten overwhelming, there's a handful of reasons. There's grief,
Yeah.
which is all encompassing and
Yeah.
causes you to have to shut down and manage some other things. So there's depression, there's ADHD, where clutter and things we can redirect. We become I say the banks to the river, because ADHDers, we tend to just, and you need just a little bit of direction, right?
Uh-huh.
But a lot of times it's just overwhelm. You're overwhelmed. Some things happen. Maybe some things happen multiple times. Maybe 17 things have happened.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you were able to put down, the rubber ball that you were juggling, might be the stuff in your house.
Yeah.
And so the corners might collect some stuff, and the Amazon boxes, do the things, and the flow of your house gets a little disrupted. But when we put it in an aspect of being like, it's just the flow of your house, let's figure out where some of these dams are and create better flow for you. And let's cut some corners so
Yeah.
you don't have to do so much work. And that's the part. It's like, wait, you're telling me that I can do less work? And I'm like, I love to sit. Let me tell
Uh-huh.
you.
Yep.
So I think that helps a lot of times in that aspect. And then I understand spectrums of minds. I am on the spectrum of many things. And with that, that's why we call it neurospicy. So like, whatever that might be, like if you have a space and you have kids, and I have neurospicy kids, and two of my kids are sensory seekers, which means that I need to have areas where they can get dirty and they can have loud music and they can have lights and they can have, and then I have a sensory avoider. And I also happen to be a sensory avoider because I'm in highly overstimulating areas on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
So I take myself and I create spaces that I can decompress in.
Yeah.
And understanding how your mind works in these
Yeah.
spaces to actually either produce productivity or produce creativity or produce relaxation, help you and your brain with the way that it works.
Yes. Yes. That's brilliant. And giving yourself permission to have that. It took years, and this is my 30th year of marriage. It took us years to realize that there are no wrong answers. There are just different opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And my need to keep things neat is an expression of my chaotic childhood. I need to control what I can control.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I've learned from my sister-in-law to have a table that has a project going and give myself permission to say, this is a table that can stay in process. It doesn't have to be clean. It can be dusted, but it doesn't have to be picked up, because this is my project table. And that
Mm-hmm.
helps me to compartmentalize the chaos of an open project without judging myself for not having all my surfaces cleaned.
Yeah.
When my ADHD husband, you should see his office. He has papers piled everywhere, and that helps him. He likes stacks of paper.
It works. It's
Yeah.
visual, probably. He remembers, because if he puts it away, he forgets about it and then it's
Yeah.
gone forever. So then it's like, okay, understanding that. When I met my partner, I was like, y'all don't like socks. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, there's socks everywhere. So I'm assuming one of two things is happening. Either you don't like the feeling of socks, so therefore everybody's taking them off and you need a system for that, or you need to buy different socks. And he was like, his mind was blown, right? Like, like, so it's, and it's all these little things that and then people shame themselves for having the socks in the corner of the house because they were hot or sticky or whatever their body was telling them at the time. And it's like, okay, well, just if you tend to not have sensory issues with clothing, or you have children who have sensory issues with clothing, then keep a laundry basket downstairs. So when people are stripping, just make sure it gets in the basket.
Yeah.
And then you're not angry about it. And then at least there's a purpose, and there's at least everything's contained, when the boundaries are set, right? And when
Right.
the boundaries need to be addressed. That's not nearly as overwhelming as walking around the house and picking up everybody's piece of clothing while you're muttering to yourself how you're going to murder them. Which,
Yeah.
right?
And talk about that. The impact, talk about stress, the impact on us when we're having to clean up the socks or the shoes by the door or the dishes in the kitchen that other people left because they have a different standard of maintenance. I have a daughter who might do all the dishes the next day, but I don't like to go to bed with dirty dishes in the sink. So how do you navigate that to keep your own cortisol levels from going through your ears?
Okay. Well, my partner is very messy.
Yeah.
I love him dearly, and he is very messy. I love him dearly, but he is very messy. So one of the ways that we work around this is he needs things out, and some of the suggestions just don't work for him. So if you look at the way that our bedroom is, he's on the left side of the bed towards the wall where he can be messy all he wants, but it's not within my walkway, because my biggest issue is because I am fragile. I fell and broke my wrist. So I'm walkways being clear, very important to me.
There you go.
So you also, again, banks to the river. I don't want him to be in a space where he feels like he has to live in a museum, right?
Yeah.
Because that makes him feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to live in a place where I hurt myself because I trip over his size 16 shoes, right? But the thing is that about this that we utilize, there's actually a tool for this that we actually work with our clients, and there's a book called Fair Play. And then there's also a deck of cards that goes with it about every single task that you have in your house.
Wow.
And it talks about, one, how to have the conversation about what your expectation is. So if we use the expectation of dishes, he was a single dad. When all of his dishes were gone and dirty, which he had 40 between the two of them, that was when he knew to do dishes. So when I say we need to do dishes and there's still clean dishes in the cabinet, it makes zero sense to him. But I need to do the dishes because I need the sink at least half open for me to be able to run the household. Yeah. That includes my hobby of gardening. That includes me doing crafts with the kids, cooking dinner, and the household functioning. Yeah. Well, he's never had a household functioning because he did stover meals and really quick, easy things. So he's never seen this side. So we actually had to have an hour and a half long conversation just about our minimum standard of care of what dishes is going to look like. We both had to talk about, because we both were talking about trees, but he was talking aspen and I was talking oak. So we had to both define what that, evergreen tree was. Yeah. So we both were on the same page. And so what this does is it creates an opportunity for you to, one, have something physical for a lot of the mental load tasks. It gives couples the opportunity to take one thing at a time, figure out what they're juggling, what they're willing to have in your deck. We're not having kids anytime soon. My mom passed away last year, so I'm no longer taking care of a parent anymore. So these are constantly changing. He just got a new job. We got the deck out again. We have to re-go over who's doing what, when, how, and what the expectation is. If he's gone on a regular basis, the expectation for me to cook on a regular basis is going to be less. I'm going to be eating out more because I got the kids and he's gone. Yeah. Right. And this deck of cards brings it to the literal table in a way that you're able to have these conversations without them being triggering, because it's just a conversation. So it's now business as usual.
Tell me the name of that deck of cards again.
It's called Fair Play. Fair Play. And there's a book that goes with it, and it explains the delegation of household care tasks. It talks about how each care task has 3 parts. You have conception, planning, and execution.
Okay.
So within that, sometimes, like with laundry, right? You'll have people say, oh, I do the laundry. I'm like, cool. Who fixes the washing machine? Who buys the detergent? Who mends the clothes?
Uh-huh.
Who makes sure that the kids are in the right size clothes and the clothes that are too small are out of the house?
Yes.
Who
Yes.
does the laundry?
That is so funny because when we had little kids at home, um, my husband told me that when he would take our daughter to preschool, he would walk in the door and they would say, "Oh, your wife is out of town, right?" Because she would have mismatched clothes, shoes that aren't even the same shoes, two different shoes. He apparently either let her get herself dressed or he wasn't paying attention. So, but it wasn't important to him. And for some reason, as a mom, I was like, oh, I want people to think that I'm an okay mom. So I want to make sure that her shoes match. There's nothing wrong with kids showing up with shoes mismatched. Actually, it's kind of cute.
Mhm.
And it was interesting. It was fun. He laughed about it. And I've learned, I need to relax my standards a little bit
Mhm.
because, why in the world? Tell me more about the process in which you discovered that you were ADHD, how it impacted your life and how you implemented some of these tactics to create peace in your own life.
So actually, I'm slightly lucky. My dad is was in the military for 42 years, so we had military benefits. My mom, unfortunately, had a brain tumor on the area of her brain that regulated anxiety. So
Ah,
because of that, I've been in therapy for a long time because I've had a mom that didn't know how to regulate her anxieties. That was a fun roller coaster ride.
yeah.
And in that, I also was a very hyperactive child, and they just didn't know what to do with me. So I went through the early diagnosis ADHD hyperactive pipeline.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
in that, because we had access to healthcare and mental health care, especially without the stigma because of the medical issue,
Uh-huh.
I was given the proper mental health care that most people should be getting on a regular basis
Yeah.
as a baseline standard. So
Yeah.
I've been able to take a lot of that information, all these tips and tricks, all these things, but really I dove into it once I had kids. Like I kind of got it together by the time I was an adult enough to be able to like hold myself together without medication. But once I had children, it all went out the window. There were
Mm.
so many more balls. I had postpartum depression. I was having a hard time. My
Yeah.
ex-husband was not helpful. He didn't even stay the first night in the hospital, honestly. He went home to
Oh,
do laundry. Like,
oh,
you know, one of those. So unfortunately, I had to take on a significant amount because he just shut down and went to work. And so
mm.
I was left, like a lot of moms, with everything else and having to go to work at the same time. And
Yeah.
so there was no way for me to be able to keep up and my sanity. So
Yep.
I learned every tip and trick I possibly could in order to try and keep up with this. And then I finally succumbed when I started my business to actually utilizing medicine to help me. But that was after I went and got genetic testing, which I highly recommend for any neurospices if you're going on medicine because they will reduce your what I call the Russian roulette of mental health drugs
Oh,
because now they
good.
know what you'll have a bad reaction to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a process of finding the right guidelines. And
And the right things that work for you because when I wasn't running a business and I only was having to like work a little bit and, be mostly a mom or just do like front office stuff that I was doing before, it was pretty easy with the tips and tricks and tools that I had. But now that I'm running such a big business with a team and, we're pretty large. So what we're bringing in, I have a lot more that I have to sit down and do. But the other thing about the monkeys on your back is sometimes you have to be okay with them. I know that I am not good with paperwork and numbers. So I
yeah.
hired somebody
Yeah.
to help who is good at that. So now we make a great team. And I think that sometimes we forget that it's okay for us to have some shortcomings because the whole point of us having a community is for us to fit together like puzzle pieces.
Yeah, exactly. You hit on probably the most important thing I talk to people in my CEO roundtables is hire people to do the things that don't come naturally to you. Don't spend your time doing the accounting just because, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Ugh.
mean, you got to
Ugh.
quickly replace that person so you can run your business.
No.
How do you, because part of what I do is business systems consulting to eliminate the crazy from people's business strategy. What do you use to organize your customer information and stay on top of communications for your clients and for your leads?
I use Angela. I use my
Angela?
Angela.
Oh, Angelo is your
Um, but the system we actually just swapped over to a fully encompassing system, which is great because we're able to actually like scan clients' rooms, get them room measurements, be able to put together mood boards. They're able to actually like pick and choose. We send them product lists and they just accept, deny, accept, deny, accept, deny. They get pictures. Like it's fully encompassing software that also runs as a CRM on the back. So it's pretty beautiful. And then she just integrates that with our QuickBooks and runs our
so this is a proprietary system that you built to do that intake process?
no, it's House.
House, okay.
Yeah, but they now have a back part system, and then also on top of it, you get the marketing that you got before that too. So they've really
Super.
come a long way. Although Angela is, as I love, tearing their app apart, and their app developers are like, nobody's ever asked this question before, and I'm like, yes, it's because I have an Angela.
That's
Work
so
on it.
House, like HAOWS?
Houzz.
Oh,
House. That's why I say it so weird. House.
easy. Okay. I'm gonna look that up because when I learn something new, now I'm curious and I have to check it out.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that. It's so important that we have some kind of a system, and it doesn't mean that there's a right way, and everyone doesn't have to have the right system. We just need a system to know that we have a place to put things, so we don't lose important customer information or new customer information. Who was that person I met at that thing? And
Hmm.
remember. So that's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Good. Well, what is any other little, 1 to 3 things that you want to leave somebody with? Let's say that someone who's listening to this is driving to work right now and just trying to manage their own sanity and clarity in the office. What's something she can take to work with her?
Um, I would say give yourself some grace.
Yes.
Remember that you're a human being and that other people's expectations, and even sometimes your own
Yeah.
expectations, which mostly I refer to my ego as Bianca. So maybe name your ego and tell her to go away or whatever you need to say to her because she might be telling you things that are untrue.
Yeah.
And I hope that that voice in your head, the more you demand it to tell you nice things, the
Yeah.
more that you will expect that treatment from people around you. And
That's a really good point. Somebody told me once to tell my alter ego, "Hey, I got it. Thanks for trying to protect me. I, I'll take it from here."
mhm,
That's beautiful. Well, and I love the fact that behind you is that sign, Life in Session. So you work with Lauren and you're getting your whole life in crystal clear clarity because you clarify some of the obvious things that we don't even question. I think that's a beautiful thing for you. Gift to the world.
thank you.
Well, thanks for being on the show with us today, Lauren. I keep it nice and short so people can listen to the show on the way to work and have something practical to apply today. If you haven't had enough of Lauren Klayton, you can check out the show notes in the LinkedIn Crazy as Usual newsletter or go to clarityforyourchaos.com and look her up. I suggest that you check this out and recommend her to people who are trying to get a little clamp on their chaos and they might be going through a traumatic situation. That's a perfect time to engage the help of somebody who can come and sit down and say, okay, life's in session. Let's talk about what brings clarity to your process. You've been listening to the Crazy as Usual podcast. Stay crazy a little bit, brilliant, and free.